Okay. There has been this moment this week that I would consider a lot of things. One of them is sweet, sweet justice for AOC. And just stay with me here. Because remember back in February when Trump tried to shade her because she was asked a question about Taiwan, and that she was asked basically whether the U.S. should defend Taiwan if China decided to invade that country. So a fairly common question. And she answered it by basically saying that it's the longstanding policy of the United States, but we hope we never get to that point. Now, technically, the longstanding policy of the United States is what's called strategic ambiguity, which I know it feels like a very inside DC term, and it kind of is, but it basically means we don't say either way because we want China to keep wondering. So leaders and elected officials in government are instructed to basically be non-committal about it. But here's the thing. Joe Biden, when I was working for him, said a couple of times that he would defend Taiwan. So there are past U.S. presidents who have had a policy position, and that may just be hers. But she was absolutely, she was incessantly attacked by the right wing over this at the time, including by Donald Trump. And I just want to play this for you because this happened a little while ago, but he went a little nuclear on her.
When it comes to war, you don't talk about your strategy. She could have done that very easily. She had no idea. I don't think she knew what Taiwan was. That was the problem. But you don't talk about military strategy. She could have taken an easy pass on that one. That was not a good answer. Could be death-defying, because I suspect that'll be used in every campaign for the next 30 years against her.
Could be death-defying, okay? Listen, first of all, there's no evidence that it was a geographical misunderstanding. It may just be her position. It's also what the last U.S. president who was a Democrat, what his position was. So either way, that's that. And you would think, the point here is you would think that he would be more incensed about the answer given by his hand-selected, hand-picked Senate nominee in the state of South Carolina when she was asked, frankly, a much easier question.
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? And if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security. But I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years. So I will do everything I can to support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military.
I mean, first of all, she wasn't asked, please describe mining in Kazakhstan. She was asked a very simple question. China has been a huge issue in national security and that everybody grapples with in Congress and frankly on the political campaign trail for decades. And it was an issue that her brother talked about a fair amount. And I want to get to that in a second. But the point is she was asked a much easier question. She couldn't give any basic answer. She just sort of acknowledged ignorance. Now, to come full circle on her brother, who was obviously in the Senate for quite a long time, the only reason she is still in this race and probably will win next Tuesday, we will see, is because of her last name. Guess what his position was on the question that AOC was asked, which was harder than the one she was asked? Well, his position, and this is a direct quote, I would be willing to fight for Taiwan. Essentially a version of Joe Biden's position on it. Again, strategic ambiguity is something that many officials lean into, but other people have positions. Okay, she didn't do that. Maybe they can put that in her briefing book. But my favorite part of this whole episode was actually when she went on TV and attempted to clean it up, because that was really something.
I tripped up on one question last night regarding Taiwan. But, I've said many times, I'm not a politician, certainly not a career politician. I don't speak politician. I was just honest, and I think that's kind of a foreign concept. But I talked to several people today. I traveled around the state, And they said, you know, we appreciated the fact that you were honest. And I did say several times that, you know, China is our enemy, our military and economic threat to the United States. Of course, Taiwan is our friend. But I think people in South Carolina are more worried about making ends meet. They're concerned about boys and girls sports. One lady talked to me extensively about that today. They're concerned about the Second Amendment. They're concerned about the Save America Act, illegal immigration. So they're concerned about a lot of other things other than Taiwan.
Listen, this is not really about Taiwan. It's about the threat of China. And there are lots of threats, which she alluded to there, economic threats, military threats. But the whole point is here, you can not speak like a politician and still read the newspaper, right? And still have a basic understanding of things. Also, you cannot speak like a politician and still seem like an informed person who's going to represent a state. But ignorance is apparently kind of what she's running on. Now, the other thing that struck me about her answer is the reference to more people bringing up things like basically boys playing in girls' sports. And that is such a favorite hobby horse of the right. It is also basically a non-issue in most of the country. I mean, to give you just a sense, it was banned in the state of South Carolina back in 2022. So people 4 years later, Darlene Graham, are so concerned about something that was banned 4 years ago, more than they're concerned about whether you have a basic understanding of international events whatsoever when you're running for the Senate. Maybe that's true, but that's a particular issue to raise. Also, the number of documented cases in South Carolina is probably zero. I couldn't find any. I don't think there are any, given it was banned, and Supreme Court also upheld that. So strange that that would be an issue you mentioned. Now, this also sticks out to me because she, again, was Donald Trump's hand-selected person in this state to be the nominee. She did not get more than 50% and so therefore there's a runoff that's going to happen next week. And again, she may very well still win that runoff for a range of reasons. But it's interesting because he's had kind of a whole list of failures here. He basically, just in the past week here, Trump-endorsed candidates have lost primaries for governor more than the last week, I should say, in the last several weeks, have lost primaries for governor in Iowa, Georgia, South Carolina, Minnesota, and Wyoming, as well as races for Texas Attorney General and House seats in Michigan, Tennessee, and Florida's 7th and 19th districts. 10 people he endorsed in competitive primaries did not win, which is quite a record of loss, and really wrapping his arms around Darlene Graham is quite something. Okay, there's another political issue that we're seeing come up quite a bit in races across the country because it's a huge issue in communities, and one maybe you care deeply about. Maybe it's something that's impacting your community, but you may have, I'm going to start in a place you may not expect on this one. You may or may not have seen this recent ad featuring former NFL player Jason Kelce, where he basically encourages people to, stay with me here, send their urine, yes, their pee, to somewhere very specific. But I'm just going to play it for you in case you have not seen it.
AI data centers waste millions of gallons of water. That's why Liquid Death and Garage Beer have decided to team up. We want your pee to cool these data centers.
We want your pee. Please give us your pee. Let's pee on computers together. Cause we need lots of pee. Endless gallons of pee. Join our important endeavor. We want your pee. Please give us your pee. Let's pee on computers together and save humanity. We want your pee.
Okay, listen, I love Jason Kelce, though I love Kylie Kelce, his wife, even more. But yes, that I recognize that commercial is a little absurd. You're going to have a hard time getting that song out of your head. I'm sorry about that in advance. And there's a small disclaimer at the bottom, which I particularly love, saying basically people should not send their pee to data centers. America 2026, everyone, here we are. But it basically, the point of showing that is it taps into this feeling. I mean, it's about the beer company and Liquid Death, which sells iced tea and water and stuff. And if you drink more of it, then there'll be more pee. And there's a whole issue around data centers and the fact that communities are so concerned that data centers are using up a ton of water and energy, driving up utility costs. So that's where these things are all connected. And it is a huge political issue in this country. This is where the Jason Kelsey P ad joins American politics. Not that that was necessarily their intention, but sometimes pop culture and politics align on things, or there's overlap on things that they're tapping into, and this is one of them. There was this recent Gallup poll where 7 in 10 Americans oppose constructing data centers for artificial intelligence in their area, and nearly half, 40%, are strongly opposed. And when asked by Gallup why they opposed these data centers, half of respondents said they were concerned about the impact of resources, including water and energy. Hence, this is how these all things connect. I'm not suggesting here, obviously, that the answer here is to drink more beer or iced tea by Liquid Death or whatever iced tea you like and mail the pee to a data center. The point is there is a clear overlap here, and this is clearly something that is in cultural conversations and political conversations as well. And on that point, it's been kind of a big issue in a lot of political races. One of them is the Texas governor's race. And this is particularly interesting because a lot of people have not been paying a close attention to it, even though Gina Hinojosa is within striking distance of Greg Abbott, one of Donald Trump's favorite little lackeys. But she has been running on this issue, and she ran this ad that I think is going to is quite telling, because this is an argument that she's been making a lot. I just want to play the ad because I'm not sure you may have seen the ad.
Why is my electric bill going up?
Absolutely. I'm happy to help. Data center production and energy use in Texas is skyrocketing to meet AI's needs. For your future.
What? Who authorized that?
Greg Abbott. Abbott took $20 million in campaign donations from data center executives and companies, and he gave them billions in tax breaks. For your future.
My future? How does this help me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great question. Happy to help.
Listen, that is an ad all about data centers. Sherrod Brown is running ads about data centers in his race against John Husted in Ohio. It's becoming an issue in so many states across the country. Now, back to Texas. So Greg Abbott has basically bragged that he wants Texas to be the epicenter of AI development. But here's where it kind of gets interesting, because as conservative and red as Texas is, there is huge outrage about data centers. And we're seeing this not just on the left, but certainly on the right as well, hence that huge number in the Gallup poll. And in recent months, Greg Abbott has even taken some kind of itty-bitty, I'm going to call them itty-bitty steps to implement new restrictions. Now, of course, most of these proposals don't really do much. I mean, it's just proposals in name only in some ways. They don't give local communities more control or on whether data centers get built near them. And that's the issue that comes up over and over and over again. But the point is, Greg Abbott, a person who echoes and defends Trump through almost anything, recognizes this is a political issue for him. And that is pretty interesting. So there's an ongoing conversation about this. I kind of thoroughly enjoyed the ad by Jason Kelsey, and yeah, don't send your pee to data centers. But the point is, it's an issue that's breaking through clearly for all these reasons. There's another issue that's breaking through politically, but I think maybe even more than that this week. Natalie Harp has, of course, become this kind of weird household name. Now, we first heard about her in Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan's book, which you may have read or seen reporting on. Lots of good reporting there. And she has been described as the human printer. She sent kind of creepy love letters, or I would characterize them that way, to Trump. And basically, John Ossoff was at a rally last Sunday, and you've probably seen this, but I'm just going to play it just so you remember the context of exactly what he said.
See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
Did you hear the response from the crowd? Either they knew who Natalie was or who knows what. But now most people, we all know who Natalie Harp is. She is the very close aide of Donald Trump, who has been working for him for the last couple of years, is with him at all moments. We learned this week that she also didn't have a national security clearance for a year, which is kind of completely crazy, thanks to some really good reporting here at MS Now. And basically, this has kind of, though, struck a massive nerve for people, not from all people. It has struck, Ossoff's comments, I should say, have struck a massive nerve. Now, you heard the context of what he said. Did he say they were having an affair? No. Did he raise the inappropriateness of their relationship specifically, of which there's been lots of questions out there about? He did not. He simply said traveling with Natalie. That's it, okay? Now, Stephen Chung, the graceful joy that he is, the communications director at the White House, went completely ballistic and said insane things about Ossoff that I'm not even going to repeat. But there was more. I mean, Megyn Kelly chimed in. Here's what she said. Ossoff was clearly implying that Trump is having an affair with a staffer. Was he? Did he say that? He was so determined to disparage Trump, he didn't give one thought, or worse, he did, to how this would affect Natalie forever. Don't let the Democrats tell you they are women. They are for women. It's a lie. I mean, first of all, you know you regularly defend a guy who was found liable for sexual assault, right? Do you see the irony here? I clearly think Ossoff knew what he was doing, but the response has been so bananas. Here's Scott Jennings, CNN's MAGA mouthpiece, who is definitely trying out to be the press secretary. No question about it. He's been on sort of a tour de force in that front. Okay, I'm going to play what he said.
That's what Democrat men think when they see a pretty girl in a government building, according to John Ossoff. The implication is that a professional woman couldn't possibly have earned her position of trust in the White House without sleeping her way to the top.
Is that the implication, Scott Jennings? I think what we know about Natalie Harp is that reportedly, according to Maggie Haberman, Jonathan Swan, and others, there have been concerns about her proximity to the president by people within the White House. She didn't have a national security clearance for a year. She is the conduit for foreign officials to get to Trump. And she seems to have kind of an obsession with him. She's like a version of an adult babysitter. That's the concern here, Scott Jennings. I mean, give me a freaking break. Also, as all of these people are raising this, Democrats don't care about women. Again, it's not just that he was found liable of sexual assault. Trump has said so many things about women. Quiet piggy, remember that? He says terrible things about his political opponents about women all the time. And in response to a CNN reporter asking a question about this week, the White House went on Twitter and said that her children would be embarrassed by her. So it's all freaking insane. Now, the thing that I did not anticipate about the reaction to this is that Jesse Waters said something that I, kind of agree with. So in case you haven't been watching Jesse Waters every night, I'm going to play that for you too.
Am I fazed by this comment? No. Has Trump said so much worse, so much more sleazy things against other people? Yes. Have I defended those things? Absolutely. So I'm not going to pretend I'm all hot and bothered about it.
I mean, look, should he have defended creepy, gross, offensive things that Donald Trump has said? No. But has Donald Trump said things that are way worse? Yes. So, what are we doing here, people? I mean, your meltdown is the most telling thing of all that is going on here. Now, speaking of other obsessions of the president's, this week we didn't learn of a new obsession. We heard, I should just say, a lot more about a new obsession, which is Trump's obsession with the helipad. Okay, the helipad is the place where helicopters can land on the South Lawn. Now, I worked for two presidents, traveled on Marine One with two presidents. These helicopters would just land on the grass. Most presidents just see it as a very cool means of getting to Andrews Air Force Base, where they fly other places. And they often have close aides travel with them so they can do final briefings before anything happening on the plane, right? That's normal. Now, they have updated these helicopters, and now the newer helicopters, they basically spray blast hot air onto the grass. Okay. So that has been not a great thing. It has hurt the grass, and we all love a nice lawn as well as a nice south lawn of the White House. But this has reached completely epic levels of obsession when there are a lot of other things that Trump could be obsessed about. And so Trump has introduced the White House helipad, basically made out of granite with a giant version of the presidential seal. I mean, construction started on it months ago, but then he thought it was too slanted. So he actually had workers rip it up because he thought it was too sloped. So not only have we done a build of a helipad for the White House South Lawn, spending money on that, this is now take 2 of the helipad and building of it. But the thing about this is, this obsession is in part about he loves concrete. He's sort of like an interior decorator and meets a realtor. I don't even know how to describe it. But he also wants to be like dictators. And we've known this for so long. And President Xi of China is coming to visit this fall. And Trump talked about this, and it was so telling because he talked about how basically he wants this fancy helipad done before Xi gets here.
Example, President Xi is coming in a little while, a couple of weeks, and we didn't plan to have this done, but it's gone so well. I delayed them a week with the lift, but that's okay. That was a good delay. That was a very good delay. But President Xi's coming, other heads of state will come, and we can do this all outside. Nice weather like today. And this was not a scheduled press conference, but I thought it's so good what we're doing.
I mean, don't worry about my policy on China or what I should get done. I'm going to show him my fancy concrete slab where helicopters can land. Look at me, President Xi. I'm so impressive and fancy. It tells you so much. Now, he went on and on about a lot of things I'm not going to play for you, including sharing important security details about the roof of the White House, including talking about the ballroom. But I do want to play another part of what he talked about because he has another obsession, and the other obsession apparently is flagpoles.
American flag, and this is a great pole. This is the top of the line. It's tapered. This isn't a straight up and down job, which looks terrible, frankly. That's a tapered pole. Great. I'm very good at flagpoles.
I'm very good at flagpoles. This does kind of remind me of when people get older and they start talking about the things they're most comfortable talking about. And it's one thing if it's like grandpa who's talking about his glory days on his high school football team. It's another thing when it's the freaking president of the United States talking about flagpoles. And that is where we are, everyone. Okay. There's another thing that just struck me this week that I have to talk about. And that is, as much as Donald Trump is more focused on concrete and flagpoles and helipads and ballrooms and whatever, and gold and all of the things he cares about, the White House, and he doesn't care much about the midterms per what he says, although I don't totally believe that given the impact, but here we are. He says he doesn't care about it. Reporting says he doesn't care about it. But the White House has developed quite a strategy for what they're going to do in this midterms. And it is this master plan of sending out a rotating cast of cabinet officials to swing states, which is quite a choice, including Iowa, which in and of itself shows Republican vulnerabilities. That in Iowa, a state that Cook Political Report actually moved some of the races there to toss-ups this week, which is super fascinating given it's a state that Trump has won in the last few presidential elections, but they're still spending cabinet officials there. And one of those officials is none other than RFK Jr. And you could look here and see that he is just chilling with Zach Lane, who is the guy running there for the governor. And it is, there are so many things to say about this. I mean, first of all, RFK Jr. has destroyed the public health system. He has been an advocate for things like getting rid of rural hospitals, for not extending ACA subsidies. Also for all of you out there who basically feel like you can't eat anything, I'm with you. Can you eat lettuce? No. Can you eat jalapenos? No. Can you eat blueberries? Apparently not. And this week there was even a granola recall. So I don't even know what we're supposed to eat anymore. Thank you, RFK Jr., for that. This is one of the biggest farm agricultural states of the country. But that aside, okay? what they said about him, and this is just maybe my favorite quote of the week, because here's what a White House official told Politico. Bobby Unleashed is her motto. We want him guns blazing. I mean, like, what does that even mean? I think it means they want him to just be out in full force, as if he is their secret weapon on the campaign trail. Yes, the guy with a brainworm who once had the head of a bear in his car, who thought it was a good idea to cold plunge with Kid Rock. That is their secret political weapon. The guy who has destroyed our public health system, who we can blame for all being worried about explosive diarrhea for eating basic things. That's their guy. I mean, I can't even make it up, but I would say Democrats maybe they should pay for his travel, because this is kind of like a gift to them. And maybe they'll send Pete Hegseth, the guy who's overseeing the most unpopular war in recent memory, with him. They can be on a campaign bus. It's like the strategy was made by the Democratic Party. Who knows?